My beloved child. Something shifted, quietly, almost invisibly, and yet, it changed everything. You didn't hear it happen. There was no loud moment, no dramatic ending, no clear signal that something inside them had begun to crumble. But deep within their heart, a realization has been growing, slow, heavy, undeniable. And now, they can't escape it. There's a silence around them lately, have you felt it? Not the kind of silence that brings peace, but the kind that forces someone to finally hear their own truth. That's where they are right now, sitting in a space they once avoided, facing emotions they once pushed away. Don't skip this part, because what's unfolding right now, it's not random. They thought they had control. They believed they could manage everything, their choices, their connections, their emotions. Even when a third presence entered their life, they convinced themselves it was harmless, temporary, something they could handle without consequences. But something about you never left them. And that's the part they didn't expect. There were moments, small, almost unnoticeable, when your absence spoke louder than your presence ever did. A memory, a tone in your voice, a look you once gave them, it started echoing back to them at the most unexpected times. Late at night, in quiet rooms, in between conversations that felt empty. And suddenly, what once felt exciting, started to feel hollow. Pause for a second, because this is where it begins to turn. They didn't immediately understand what was happening. At first, they tried to ignore it. They distracted themselves, stayed busy, surrounded themselves with noise. But the feeling didn't go away. It grew. There's something powerful about truth when it finally rises to the surface. It doesn't shout, it lingers. It sits with you, patiently, until you can no longer pretend it isn't there. And now, they're at that point. Have you ever noticed how people only begin to see clearly when they lose what truly mattered? That clarity, it's hitting them now. Not all at once, but in waves. One moment they're fine, the next, something pulls them inward. A thought, a memory, a comparison they never intended to make, but can't stop making now. Because deep down, they're starting to recognize something they didn't want to admit before. What they chose didn't feel like you. And that realization, it doesn't come without weight. Stay a little longer, because something important is waiting for you. There are tears now, not loud, not dramatic, but quiet ones. The kind that appear when someone is alone, when there's no one to impress, no role to play, no image to maintain. Just them, and the truth. They're beginning to see the difference between connection and distraction. Between something real, and something that only looked real on the surface. And here's the part they can't ignore anymore. They remember how you made them feel without trying. They remember the depth, the comfort, the understanding that didn't need explanation. And now, they see what they replaced it with. Something that required effort, something that never quite reached the same place inside them. Do you feel that shift? It's subtle, but it's powerful. Because this isn't about regret in the way you might think, it's deeper than that. It's the realization that something meaningful was standing right in front of them, and they didn't fully recognize it until it wasn't within reach anymore. That realization, it changes people. It softens them, breaks certain illusions, forces them to look inward in a way they've never done before. And right now, they are looking inward. But here's something even more unexpected. They're not just seeing what they lost, they're starting to understand why they made those choices in the first place. And that part is uncomfortable, because it means facing their own patterns, their fears, the parts of themselves they avoided. It's easier to blame circumstances, easier to say things just didn't work, but now, they're seeing it wasn't that simple. And that awareness, it's heavy. There's a moment, a very specific moment, where everything becomes clear for someone like this. It doesn't come with warning. It just arrives. And when it does, it feels like everything pauses. They're approaching that moment. You might not see it yet, you might not hear from them, you might not even feel connected to their energy right now. But something is unfolding, quietly, deeply, undeniably. And it's leading somewhere. Don't rush this, because what's happening is not meant to be fast. Realizations like this, they take time to settle, to be understood, to be fully felt. But once they are, nothing remains the same. Let me ask you something. Why do you think certain people only begin to understand the value of something after stepping away from it? Think about that, because the answer is part of this story. They needed to experience the contrast. Not to hurt you, not to create distance, but because something within them hadn't fully awakened yet. And now, it is. Slowly, quietly, but powerfully. There's a heaviness in their chest lately, a kind they don't talk about. It shows up in small ways, in their silence, in the way they pause mid-conversation, in the way their eyes drift when they're alone. Because inside, something is shifting. And once it shifts, it cannot go back. You might be wondering, what does this mean for you? Stay till the end, because the answer isn't what you expect, and it's not something that can be rushed into a single moment. For now, just understand this. They are no longer in the same place they were before. The illusion, the distraction, the surface level connection, it's losing its hold. And in its place, something deeper is rising, something they can't ignore, something that keeps bringing them back, not physically yet, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually, back to you. But this is where the story becomes even more delicate. Because realization alone is not the final step. There's something else that needs to happen, something they are just beginning to feel, but haven't fully stepped into yet. And when that moment arrives, it will change everything again. Not loudly, not dramatically, but in a way that cannot be undone. And you'll feel it, before you even understand it. Because the next phase of this journey is already beginning to form. And just when they thought the storm inside them would settle, something even deeper begins to rise. It doesn't come as a sudden realization this time. It comes as a quiet discomfort they can't explain. A feeling that follows them into every space, every conversation, every moment where they try to act like everything is normal. But nothing feels normal anymore. They find themselves pausing more often now, staring into nothing, as if searching for something they can't quite name. And in those pauses, your presence appears again. Not loudly, not forcefully, just there. Isn't it strange how the heart remembers what the mind tried to forget? Because no matter how much they tried to move forward, something kept pulling them back, not physically, not in action, but in thought, in feeling, in those quiet spaces where truth has no distractions. And this is where it becomes undeniable. They begin to see patterns they never noticed before. The way conversations with that third presence started to feel repetitive, surface level, almost rehearsed. The way laughter didn't reach the same depth, the way silence felt uncomfortable instead of peaceful. And without even trying, they start comparing. Not because they want to, but because their heart is doing it on its own. And every comparison leads back to you. Stay here for a moment, because something important is unfolding. They remember how with you, there was no need to perform, no need to filter every word, no need to maintain an image. There was a natural ease, a sense of being understood without explanation. And now, they realize how rare that truly was. You didn't ask them to be anything other than themselves. And now, they're beginning to feel the weight of trying to be someone they're not. That weight, it's exhausting. It shows up in the way they withdraw slightly, in the way their energy feels different, in the way even simple interactions start to feel like effort. And slowly, the illusion fades. Not all at once, but piece by piece, like a picture losing its color. And with every piece that fades, clarity takes its place. But clarity doesn't always feel peaceful. Sometimes, it feels heavy, because now, they can't hide from what they're starting to understand. They're beginning to see that what they walked into wasn't aligned with what they truly needed. And more importantly, they're beginning to see what they walked away from. Don't skip this, because this moment matters more than it seems. There's a quiet kind of regret forming, not loud, not overwhelming, but steady. The kind that sits in the background, growing stronger with time. It's not about blaming anyone. It's not about pointing fingers. It's about awareness. And awareness changes everything. They're starting to question themselves now. Why did I choose that path? What was I trying to fill? What was I avoiding? And these questions, they don't have easy answers. Because the truth, it requires honesty they're not used to facing. But they're trying. And that is where the shift deepens. You might not see this part, because it's happening internally. But inside, they're slowly unraveling the version of themselves that made those choices. And as that version fades, something more real begins to emerge. A softer side, a more aware side, a part of them that understands things differently now. And with that understanding comes emotion. Their eyes, they don't just hold tears, they hold realization. Not just about you, but about themselves. Because this was never only about a third presence. It was about what they were searching for, and what they didn't realize they already had. Pause here, and feel that. Sometimes people walk away, not because something is missing, but because they haven't yet learned how to recognize what's real. And now, they are learning. Slowly, quietly, but deeply. There's a moment coming, very soon, where everything they've been feeling will reach the surface. Not in chaos, not in confusion, but in clarity. And when that happens, they won't be able to ignore it anymore. They won't be able to pretend. Because something inside them is already preparing for that moment. You might wonder, what does that moment look like? It's not dramatic. It's not loud. It's a decision. A quiet, internal decision that shifts direction. And once that decision is made, everything begins to align differently. But here's the part that's still unfolding. They haven't fully reached that point yet. They're close. Closer than ever before. But there's one last layer they need to face. One final truth, one final realization, one final moment of honesty that will determine everything that comes next. And that moment, it's already approaching. You may not see it. You may not hear it. But you will feel it. Because when someone's heart changes, the energy around them changes too. And that energy, it has a way of reaching you, even in silence. So if you've been sensing something lately, a shift, a subtle pull, a quiet change in the air, it's not your imagination. Something is happening, and it's leading somewhere very specific. Stay till the end, because what comes next, it's not just about them anymore. It's about what this entire journey is preparing both of you for. Because once that final realization settles in, there's no going back to who they were before. Only forward, into something they're just beginning to understand, and something you've been ready for, longer than you realize. And that's where the next part begins, right at the edge of a decision they can no longer delay. There comes a point, when thinking is no longer enough, when all the questions, all the reflections, all the quiet realizations, begin to gather into something heavier, something that demands movement. They are standing at that edge now, not visibly, not in a way the world can see, but internally, everything has led them here. A space where they can no longer stay the same, even if they try. And here's what makes this moment different. It's no longer about confusion. It's about truth. They've started to recognize something that changes everything, something they didn't allow themselves to fully feel before. It wasn't just that the connection with that other presence felt incomplete. It's that it never truly reached them, not in the way that mattered, not in the place where something real, something lasting, actually lives. And now, they feel the absence of that depth more clearly than ever. You see, surface level connections can look convincing for a while. They can create moments, distractions, temporary feelings. But eventually, the heart begins to ask for more. And when it doesn't receive it, it starts to pull away. That's what's happening now. Slowly, subtly, but undeniably, they are pulling away from something that once held their attention, not because they were forced to, but because it no longer feels aligned with who they are becoming. Pause here, because this is where everything shifts again. There's a quiet courage forming inside them. It doesn't look like confidence yet. It doesn't sound like bold decisions. But it's there. A willingness to finally be honest, not with others, but with themselves. And that kind of honesty, it changes direction. They've begun to admit something they avoided for a long time. That what they felt with you wasn't ordinary. It wasn't something they could replace. It wasn't something that could be recreated somewhere else. And that realization, it doesn't come without emotion. Because now, they see the gap between what they chose and what they truly valued. And that gap, it hurts. Not in a dramatic way, not in a way they show outwardly, but in a quiet, steady way that stays with them. It follows them into moments where they least expect it. A memory appears, uninvited. A feeling returns, without warning. And suddenly, they're right back in that space where everything felt real, effortless, genuine. With you. Stay with this feeling, don't rush past it. Because this is where the story becomes more than just realization, it becomes transformation. They're no longer the same person who made those choices. That version of them, it's fading. And in its place, something more aware is emerging. Someone who understands the weight of connection, the value of presence, the importance of emotional truth. But here's where it becomes even more delicate. Awareness alone doesn't fix everything. It opens the door, but they still have to walk through it. And that's where hesitation appears. Because stepping forward means facing what they left behind. It means acknowledging what they didn't fully appreciate at the time. It means accepting that some things can't simply be returned to as if nothing happened. And that realization, it humbles them deeply. There's a softness in them now, a kind of vulnerability they didn't allow themselves before. And it shows, in ways only they can feel, in the way their thoughts slow down, in the way their emotions become more present, in the way they no longer rush to escape what they're feeling, because now, they're sitting with it, fully. And in that stillness, something powerful is forming. A decision, not rushed, not forced, but built from everything they've come to understand. You might not see it yet, but they are preparing to choose differently. Not based on impulse, not based on distraction, but based on truth. And truth, once it's seen clearly, cannot be unseen. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt a shift in someone, before they even said a word? That subtle change, that quiet difference in energy. That's what's beginning to happen here. They are changing, from the inside out. And when that kind of change takes place, it eventually moves outward, into action, into expression, into choices that reflect who they are now, not who they were before. But here's the part that hasn't fully unfolded yet. They are still gathering the strength to take that step, because the next move they make, it won't be small, it won't be casual, it will carry meaning, intention, and honesty they've never expressed before. And that takes courage. The kind of courage that doesn't appear instantly, but builds, slowly, through every moment of awareness, every wave of emotion, every quiet realization they've been experiencing. And now, they're almost there, closer than they've ever been. You might feel it as a subtle pull. A quiet shift in your own awareness. A sense that something is approaching, even if you can't see it yet. That feeling, it's not random. It's connected. Because when someone reaches this level of clarity, it doesn't stay hidden for long. It begins to move, and when it does, it changes everything that follows. So stay here, just a little longer. Because what comes next is not just about what they've realized. It's about what they're about to do with it. And that is where everything finally begins to reveal itself, in a way you won't expect, but somehow will instantly recognize.